So I've had to come out onto a little bit of a road trip through some pretty beautiful countryside in some pretty manky weather to visit my mate Paul, because I need to source some emergency wood. I've had a little bit of an issue with the fretboard, and as things stand it's not looking brilliant, and I think potentially it could be scrapped. I had a conversation with Paul yesterday and he said he has some material which might be suitable, so I'm going to head over there and have a look at it, and hopefully we can get something suitable. But I'll fill you in with the grisly details when I get back to the shed. Okay, so back from my little road trip, and it's time to explain exactly what it is I've done. And basically, this is the right shape and it's the right size. However, I've cut it off centre. So when this is in position, the position markers, especially at this end of the neck, are way off centre. And I think I've cut this maybe 3mm out of position, which might not sound like a huge amount, but it makes a massive difference. However, I do think there's a fix. Now, as I say, I've just been to see Paul and I've got this length of Pau Ferro off him. It is quite nice wood. It is a sort of a rosewood. It's a very interesting board. However, it's not a particularly good colour match, which is a shame. But this will become a fingerboard at some point because I think it will make a great fingerboard. Just not right now. But fear not, because I've actually got some of this black cabbage bark left over from the fingerboard of the base 6 that I did, and this is a lot closer. It's a lot closer in colour, and I think with a little bit of work with the old rosewood stain we can get that a bit darker still. So my plan is, once I've got the neck fitting properly into the body, I can then position this exactly where it needs to be in terms of the nut line and everything. From there I can position this centrally and mark it in such a way that I've got an even amount of space both top and bottom of the neck to allow for that binding, and simply clean everything up, plane a nice straight edge onto both of these, and then I can then glue on that additional piece of material and then trim it all down to the right size. I think I can get away with this. I think I can do it. But before we can do anything with the fretboard, we've got to get this neck fitting into the neck pocket, which will involve just cleaning up this end of the neck blank where I left it rough cut a few weeks ago. And as things stand, we're actually quite a way off fitting on this. Looking at it, it's probably about 2.5–3mm. So what I intend to do is I'm going to clean the top edge up first, get that down. You can just about see the line on there. Get it down to that line, and from there I can start to work this material down until we get it a nice tight fit into the pocket. And to do that, I'm going to need a nice sharp plane. So that's the top bit done, so we just need to get this section here thinned down. Hopefully that will be what we need. And I've adjusted the plane so it's hardly taking a cut at all. And I'll just keep trying that in the neck pocket, still a little way off. strokes at a time. Until we get it in. Now it's in and it's tight, however these corners need a little bit of radiusing just so it goes right the way into that corner. And I think the best way to do that is just with a hand file. Okay, so we've got this fitting relatively well now, but there is still a tiny little bit of a gap towards the bottom. So to get this fitting really well, I'm just going to mark inside, mainly on the corners, because that's where these things tend to catch, with some pencil. We can sand that out later, it's not an issue. And then I'm going to put the neck in and just give it a little bit of a wriggle. And as we can see, that's left a little bit of a witness mark there. So we need to remove a little bit of material from that. This one, there's a little bit there, look. But apart from that, that side's quite good. So we'll just get the file back on that. Hopefully get it fitting a bit better. And this is something of a iterative process. You have to kind of go back to it a few times, because what you find is the point of contact will shift as you get it closer, but I think we are as close as we ever need to be with that now. You've got to bear in mind as well that this neck still hasn't got any finish on it, as the body hasn't. So any gap that there is there in the neck pocket will get filled with finish. And it might even be the case that we have to kind of do some sanding inside that neck pocket. Once the finish is on, just to get it to fit absolutely perfectly. I'll be honest, if I can get away without doing that, I will, but it isn't always the case. So with the neck now fitting properly, we can start to do a bit of setup work, get the bridge in the position we'd like it. From there we can work out the nut line and get this fingerboard at least temporarily attached, so we can start the trimming process. Because I don't want there to be a gap at the back of here, which there could be, I'm going to position the bridge in such a way that it just covers the route in the body. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to attach this ruler level with the edge of the route with a bit of super glue and masking tape, and that will act as a stop, meaning that the bridge won't be able to move back any further than I want it to. Of course, this needn't necessarily be the final position of the bridge. We could always kind of adjust it. at the point of wanting to do this properly, but for now that has located it in this plane, so realistically it can't move past where we want it to. And I'm just gonna use a bit of masking tape. Just to stop that wriggling around, and from there I feel we can get a pretty accurate measurement for our scale length. Now I'm just going to move this saddle slightly back because it is at the moment kind of pretty much as far forward as it can go, and I want the luxury of a tiny little bit of forward adjustment if I need it. But with that done, I'm simply going to place the ruler where the string would break over that saddle and mark off 25.5 inches. Square that across with the shiny protractor. And square those lines down the side of the neck. And then we can use that to line up where our fretboard needs to be. Okay, so now we've got the nut line established, we can actually get this fretboard properly mounted where it needs to go. I'm going to hold it in place with some cocktail sticks, as I generally do, and then we can start marking out to get this trimmed down to allow for that binding that we're going to add. A quick aside, I've just been setting up for getting the fretboard mounted, and I've had to kind of re-establish a few markings here and there, and I've just noticed this mark on the back, and it's where there's a planer blade notch has left a little lump on there, and it's picked up some dirt or something, and it's about 3mm off from my centre line on the base side, which is exactly how I've cut the fretboard wrong. Possibly a bit far-fetched, but that could be how I've messed up. Okay, and there's the fretboard positioned on the neck, and all I've done is I've aligned the nut slot to the line that we've just calculated and made sure that the centre lines are all lined up. And as you can probably see here, there is a substantial gap. That is how much I've got it wrong. And if I just get my caliper on that, it's actually about 2.5mm. So it is quite a substantial amount of material that I've missed off there. So next, to move this on, I'm going to drill a couple of holes through a fret slot. So one at this end and one at this end. I might just have to move that clamp slightly. So I'll drill it through the fret slot so that I can insert a bit of cocktail stick through the fretboard into the neck to hold it in position. From there, I can mark around the fretboard with a pencil. We can remove the material that's overhanging the edge of the neck at the moment, because there is still some in places. And from there, we can then accurately mark how much trimming down I need to do to make this binding work. Okay, so that's everything trimmed down nice and flush. So I'm actually going to, I think I'm going to have to use a dog with a clamp just to keep things where I need them, because I'm going to take my marking gauge and I'm going to set it up to the widest part of that gap, which I think is down here, and I'll just check that. Yeah, it is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a gauge line down there until it meets up with where I'm short. I'm going to do the same on the other side. And with that done, I can now get this off, get those planed down nice and straight to those lines, and we've got the size of fretboard that we need to then glue on those additional bits of material. This is proving to be quite a mission, but it's still not quite as much work as making a new fretboard, so generally I'm quite happy with that. And there we have what's left of the fretboard, but it's all planed down really nicely. This rosewood is quite nice for that. Very consistent, takes a really nice shaving. And I've also prepared a couple of little bits of this black cabbage bark, one for the top, one for the bottom, which are just about wide enough to fill that gap. So all that's left to do at this juncture is to get this prepped up and get them glued on. So get them out of the way for the time being. I'm going to take the fretboard off. I'm going to cover the whole of the area of the neck that I'm going to be working on with masking tape so I don't get anything stuck to it. We can reattach the fretboard again and then get some glue on the job, a few clamps, and we should be good to go. And there we have it all glued up. I'm going to go back over this and try and get rid of as much squeeze out as I possibly can, because there is a fair bit, but that might be easier said than done. And I'm also going to take my little hooky tool and just kind of clear the glue out of those fret slots as best I can, just so we don't have problems a bit further down the line. But other than that, I think we're kind of at a point where we can't really do an awful lot more on this until the glue has dried. So that seems like an ideal place to leave this one. I'll be back in a couple of days' time when we can get this out of the clamps, take a look at it and get everything flushed down, get the board radiused again, and see basically if we've managed to save this. So don't forget to tune in for that. Until then, don't forget to hit the like button if you've enjoyed this, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.